Pawly. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've been clean and sober this time since June 19th, 2007. So it'll be 15 years on Sunday coming up. Ooh, ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's crazy. I would have never thought. I mean, my life is unbelievable. I would have never thought. I'm just sort of flabbergasted at times at how good life has become.
Right.
And when I say good, I don't mean wonderful and happy all the time. I mean my ability to be present in the happiness and the sadness.
Yeah.
I really enjoy my emotions. I'm sure the people that live with me, maybe not so much, but I love the whole spectrum. I enjoy laughing. I enjoy crying, especially like at a good sappy movie. Dude, I love the way like a good cry feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what do you want to know?
Thank you for sharing that, first of all. That was amazing.
My pleasure.
And thank you for taking the time and
Yeah.
coming out to share your journey, your story with us.
Yeah.
So let's start right at the beginning. So let's talk about your childhood. Did you grow up with both parents? Did you experience trauma? School
Divorced
life?
home. Dad left when I was 7 or 8. And then there was a series of ensuing what we call ACE experiences, adverse childhood events, trauma, sexual abuse, as well as just the way I was raised in the 70s. I was a latchkey child, and that's, I've come to view that as being not good. I would let myself in the house growing up. There was not an adult around for a few hours after I got home. So all that stuff sort of, it was the perfect storm. I do believe that the illness, that my drug and alcohol problem would have been there had that stuff not happened, but I believe it certainly fanned the flames.
For sure.
I had a lot of stuff I wanted to numb and not feel. And food was my first drug. Dude, I gotta tell you, Cinnamon Toast Crunch was there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you kind of noticed the problem with that?
7 and 8 and 9, and the overeating, and then the bullying that came from that. I mean, that stuff really took a big toll.
Yeah.
For sure. And then the drug use right after that, which, quite frankly, it just felt magic. It really felt magic. The first time I drank felt magic. I
How
really
old were
fell in
you?
love. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think. Drinking probably began in 2nd, 3rd grade, stealing drinks. My mom would have a little party, and there'd be these half-empty glasses of wine everywhere, and I'd sort of, zip in and out of the room and drink them, and I loved the way it made me feel. And then the first time I smoked pot that was really the game changer. I definitely enjoyed drugs more than alcohol, for sure. And the first time I smoked pot, I thought, I have found, dude, this is the skeleton key. You know what I'm saying? Like, it made me feel so good. The euphoria that I felt from that was, I remember thinking, I can't wait to do this again. I'm going to do this forever. That was the thought. Loved it.
It's interesting how a lot of us have that. It fills the void so quickly, and then it's like, we're going to do this forever. We don't know we don't care.
Yeah.
So was that in high school when you first started smoking marijuana?
No, I started smoking pot in my early teens.
Okay.
And I was intervened on because my grades started to suffer. I never really did well in school anyway. I don't like, just cracking the books is not my favorite thing to do. So I started to get in trouble, and I was intervened on and went through not inpatient, outpatient treatment, beginning at like 12 and 13 and stuff like that. And then my first inpatient was 16.
Wow.
They sent me to Athens, Ohio to get clean and sober, which, if you know anything about Ohio, is kind of amusing since it used to be viewed as the party capital of the of the state.
Yeah, right.
But that was the first time I ever stayed somewhere and was inpatient, and I put together a long stretch of recovery then. Okay. I stayed clean and sober from 16 to about 21, and I picked back up. On my 21st birthday, I went to a liquor store and bought some alcohol and used it pretty responsibly in the beginning, for sure. It wasn't directly downhill.
Okay.
And then started smoking pot again, and then it was off to the races. And then I went into a line of work where drug use was accepted and pretty much encouraged.
And what was that?
Radio broadcasting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was allowed, encouraged, I remember the first time there's a funny story about the first time I knew that it was really okay to do this and act this way was I was a disc jockey on an FM radio station. It was my first huge job, and it was at a very big radio station, well respected in the business, and I was just like, wow, I can't believe I've gotten this far this fast. And part of my job after I would hop off the air I'd have to read commercials. And one of them that I read all the time was for a stereo store, a car stereo store. And the script said that the speakers were $199. But I went out and smoked this like monster joint, back when we smoked joints, man. And I said $1.99, and I didn't catch it, and it began to air. And so they had to sell their product for the advertised price. So I got pulled into an office by my boss, who was like, I want to know what happened. And I looked at him and I said, do you want me to lie or do you want me to tell you the truth? He's like, yeah, dude, I want you to tell you the truth. I said, Tom, I just got really stoned and I said $1.99 and I screwed up. And he looked at me and he said, don't screw anything up for a couple of days. I'll take care of it. And I was like, wow. Oh, okay. So it's kind of acceptable. And other people I worked with use drugs and alcohol.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. And quite frankly, it's not hard to stay in active addiction when you wake up at 11 in the morning, go to work at 2, and you're done at 7.
Yeah.
And you're sitting down the entire time, Right. So it really fit with, it fit my drug and alcohol problem beautifully, and allowed me to keep a job. There's no drug testing. So just sort of allowed me to not hit a bottom in terms of financially,
right?
And allowed me to just sort of skate for a long time. It's it's kind of funny because it really is like a textbook timeline. First came the food, then came the cigarettes. So I started stealing smokes from my parents. Then came drinking. Then came marijuana. Then came the psychedelics. Right? There's a timeline: mushrooms, LSD. Then came the pills, which is really what brought the house down. And it started with the benzos, and then I got caught up in the opioid epidemic for sure and was addicted to OxyContin, and then couldn't afford it or couldn't find it, and then and so now I'm using heroin, which you're just like, I can't believe I'm using heroin now, but I mean, that's kind of what happened. I went along like that up until outside forces nudged me into treatment.
Okay.
Which was the impending, that sounds kind of grim, the impending birth of sounds like doom and gloom. There's a baby on the way. It was horrible, but that's not the case. It's just she was on the way, and my wife battened down the hatches and said, if you think that I am going to be part of a family where there is an active drug addict using, you're sorely mistaken.
Wow.
So she sort of put the screws to me. And it was interesting because I had been in recovery prior. So I was never okay with how I was living, but the disease was strong. I mean, man, that imperative, that compulsion, the obsession and the compulsion, even as things are falling apart around you, is really, I don't know, it just sort of blows my mind how powerful addiction is.
So your wife gives you an ultimatum, basically, I'm going to leave you if you don't go to treatment?
Yep.
So then what happened? You went to treatment.
I was mad and I went to treatment, and I remember I struck a deal. I said, I will go on an MAT program, and that is the only way I will go into recovery. I said, I cannot stop using cold turkey. It's not going to work for me, but I'll go on an MAT program.
And how did that work out for you?
Great. I was on it for 6 months. I followed the rules. I was on a respectable, appropriate dose, which I think was super helpful. I had the services wrapped around it. It's not just about the substance, it's about the way we think. And so I had the counseling and everything. The mutual aid groups were helpful for the most part. I ran into like a bit of a hardship there with some staunch 12-step folks who sort of questioned how I was doing it. Some of them with zero grace and zero tact, and I think I understand why. I think they meant well, but it was key. It was key for my program. For sure.
So you were on MAT for 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then how long were you in treatment for?
The program that I was in, let me think, was because I did a PHP program, partial hospitalization, and then IOP and continuing care. I want to say the whole thing, like pretty much at that level, was 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you go home to your wife after that?
Yeah.
And then you had your daughter?
Yeah.
So you were sober then?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes, I got clean in June of 2007, and my daughter was born in November of 2007. She's going to be 15 in November, and in like 2 days, I'm going to have 15 years. Woot, woot. Crazy. I would have never thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you thought you could not
I
do
was like,
it.
I can't do any of this. And I mean any of it. It's not just the drug use. I can't stay married. Are you kidding me? I didn't come from a house where that worked out. Quite the opposite. I was like, this is doomed to fail. I'd see people walking down the aisle and I'd be like, good luck, because that's never going to work. Having a meaningful, deep, connected relationship with your kids, I hadn't seen work. I have an older daughter, and our relationship suffered greatly because of my addiction. It's better now, but it suffered greatly because of it. So I didn't think any of it was going to work.
So you're
I was scared. I was scared, really. I was just scared. I just didn't think I could do it.
Right, right.
It's all fear.
Right. I mean, it's hard to see that, like, your future, like, just living without your drug, your substance,
it was
your drug
horrible.
choice, or any substance.
Yeah.
Like,
and the brutal truth, and something that I'm not necessarily hesitant to tell people who are new, but I speak of this. I pick and choose who I share this with, but now I'm going to share it with you. So anyone that sees this is going to. My life in a lot of ways got worse when I first got clean and sober. It did not get better. Yes, I was not at death's door. Yes, I could function in my life. Yes, I was responsible. Right, all those things. But the way I handled my emotions, or the lack of my ability to regulate my emotions, the way I went through the world, and I was attempting, I was working a program, but the way I treated people, the way I reacted to people, the way I handled stress was really not pretty.
So it sounds like you learned a lot about yourself, though, in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
And then what kind of happened to make you look at yourself a little bit differently and change that aspect about it?
Really what happened was I continued to work 12-step, but I also got some other outside help. I definitely needed outside help. Outside help has always been key. Outside help was part of my program when I first got clean as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I knew I needed more of it. I needed some effective trauma counseling. And I got that help, and I also needed some psych meds for sure. Generalized anxiety was a thing that I never knew. Now, it's funny because my wife would be like, I've been telling you the whole time you need to be on meds, and I was like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I remember where I sort of had, not an epiphany, because that's very grand. I had an epiphany, but I did have a moment where I thought, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, and something is still off. And we started to head down that road, and within 3 days of starting a medication, I was like, oh. It started to help me within 3 days, which is kind of unheard of. It normally takes, 2 to 4 weeks, 2 to 6 weeks, 2 months. It's within like 3 days, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, wow, I felt like this my whole life. So the medication was key. Wow. It still is key for me, for sure. Mm-hmm. The other thing that is really important that I feel strongly about, you probably can't tell because of how I look, and that's fine, because, eating's always been an issue for me, is exercise. I move my body at least 3 to 4 times a week. When I don't exercise, I don't feel okay. I get a little frantic. That's the best way to explain. I get a little uncomfortable in my skin. My anxiety goes up. So exercise is super important. Love it.
All right, so 15 years is quite a while, and so I want to know like the good stuff about sobriety. I want to know what kind of gifts, both intangible and tangible gifts, that you have received in sobriety and in recovery that you wouldn't have been able to get like an active addiction.
Got it. Gifts of recovery. I have the ability to keep my mouth shut when I need to. That is a gift of recovery. I've never had that. I'm not going to say it's not hard, but there's something to be said for pausing. Let's just wait a minute before we fire off that email. You know, let's maybe just whoa, just slow it down. So my ability to slow things down, my ability to be present for the people I love, my desire to want and maintain deep, meaningful, emotionally connected relationships with a select few in recovery. This isn't an ego thing, and just let me, I mean, some people, look, if you think it's an ego thing, whatever, that's on you. It's not. It is I love the people who I love in recovery. And I have a very select group of people that I meet with regularly outside of any formal structure, men and women, that I love and I care for deeply, and that means the world to me. So it's my ability to feel emotions. I mean, like I said before, I love feeling happy, but man, I love crying, dude. It feels so good to cry. And when I can have a moment where I'm tapped into like some grief from my childhood, or I'm in therapy and I'm working on some of these things and it's coming up and out, I'm like, it feels amazing. It feels so good to be able to experience that.
So what do you think would be, out of the 15 years, the biggest challenge that you have faced in recovery and staying sober through it?
The biggest event? Sure. Okay. There's themes and things I will always struggle with, but the biggest event would be changing my career. I had a very successful radio show in Cleveland for about 7 years, from 2004 to 2010, and then because of how I acted and newly recovered in recovery, people hated me, and I was like, you can't fire me, I'm number one. And they said, watch this, and they blew us out, and it was awful, and we lost our home, lost our house, like in recovery. Foreclosure started. We actually got a short sale, but the process, I mean, it was terrible. And so I knew that whatever I did for a living, I had to enjoy, because I can't, people that go to a job every day that they hate, I don't know how you do it, man. Like, I would never be able to do that. And this was the only other thing I cared about, was addiction and recovery. So I switched careers, and that was tough, because I had imposter syndrome too, right? I felt like I didn't belong. It was kind of like the real world. I had to wear a tie. It was like an HR department.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I was like, you mean I'm not allowed to run down the hall screaming expletives? Yeah.
So what about your relationships today? So, you know, with your wife, with your daughter, your older daughter too. What about that?
My relationship with my older daughter is fantastic now. We talk. She likes me. I like her. We had our moment of, I guess you could say, our amends moment, but it was like a back and forth, so it wasn't, you know, that was good. My relationship with my younger daughter it's really interesting. It's bittersweet in the sense that being with her the entire time and feeling the richness of that and the connection of that, in stark contrast to what I have with my older daughter, and in stark contrast to what I had growing up. I feel so connected to her. I love her so much. Like, and I just genuinely, even now that she's a teen and she's starting to act teeny, and like, she just loves to just like me. I still just, like, I'll have a conversation with her. I'm like, God, I just like you, man. I like you. That is so good.
Yeah.
My relationship with my wife took a lot of work, and there'll be a lot of marriage counseling, dude. Woo! We were on the extended plan there. Woo! I mean, we went a lot, because we both came from a similar background. So we had all those trust issues, all those family of origin issues, trauma, both of us, that we've both sought outside help for. But we worked through it a lot, but it was really challenging, dude. And then the other thing, too, is I think to really grow with someone, you got to be willing to say the things you don't. If I could encapsulate my relationships with people and what makes them stronger in recovery, it is the ability to say that thing that I tell myself, oh, you can't say that. That's the key. It's being able to say that thing where I'm like, I can't. Those things that I avoid, right?
Right.
I don't need to. That's exactly what I need to say.
Right.
And it's really scary still, you know.
For somebody out there struggling, do you have any words of hope that maybe helped you at first, or something that you could share that really inspires you?
I think back to the thing that really helped me in the beginning, and it was people, two specific people who said the right thing to me at the right time. And the gist of what they said is, you can stop using drugs and drinking. You can be done. It's possible. I've done it. You can too. And really believing someone when they said it, because I believe them. Like the one guy especially, and I don't know why it was him, but I was like, I believe you, dude. And that was just earth-shattering to me, because I just was like, I'm never going to be able to stop. So you can.
No.
And you can have some peace of mind with whatever has happened in your past. I do appreciate the twists and turns that led me here. And I think if you do recovery right, that happens for everyone, where you really sort of gain an appreciation for the sweet and the sour, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's what I would tell them.
Very well said. So is there anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap this up?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you, Pawly, so much for coming out and
Yeah,
being
you're
just
welcome.
so honest and, funny and all that good stuff. I think you're an amazing person, and I absolutely love you, and I can't wait to share this on our channel.
Yeah. I look forward to getting to know you and
Yeah, absolutely.
supporting you on your journey, and I would love to be in your orbit as well. You seem super cool. And
You are now in my orbit.
other than that, give me some money.